Going live. I'm live. Hey guys, I'm here just a few minutes early to make sure the stream is working. And I also did some last minute edits on my art, and it's very last minute, I can tell, because I flipped things. I wanted to have a nice even space down in the bottom there, make it look nice and pretty for my first scheduled stream. So let me go to and see, we already have viewers. And according to YouTube, the stream is healthy. So I'm going to give people a few minutes to allow people to filter in and get this going. But I wanted to get here a few minutes early just to make sure that everything was working properly. So if you are in the chat, go ahead and, just say hi. And then if you have a question, start typing. And then I will get to it in about 5 minutes. We're about 5 minutes out from our time. So, hello, Giga. You were on my last live stream. So, it's good to see you again. Good evening. Is it evening where you are? I know now I'm asking the questions. It's supposed to be Q&A for the Mooneagle, not for you. But let me know what time it is where you are. So what do you think of the setup here? Like fancy, huh? I've been watching a lot of how-to videos on streaming. Yes. Okay, cool. See, I never you have like 3 different identities. I know you as John and Jim, both, because of your email, and then one of my Patreon people's on. Yay! I love my Patreon folks. Yep, same time zone. Okay, cool. Eastern time zone. It's evening now. I've got candle in the window here. Candles lit on the altar over there that you can't see. I've actually got. It's where I did my Friday ceremony earlier with the mesa laid out over there. So you should already have seen that posted up on Patreon, or if you're on my email prayer list. You would have gotten that already. One identity, multiple names. I understand. I am known by many names. Well, sometimes. Excellent. So, is there any lag for you? Is the stream coming in all right? I promise people will get more exciting than this. And we always have the ticker scrolling at the bottom, mesmerizing you, drawing you in. So unfortunately, when I look at my stuff there, I've got 4 viewers. Awesome. So this is weird how this works for streaming scheduled. It's Sherry. Yeah, Sherry, I started early just to make sure to test out the software, test out the stream, make sure everything was looking all right, everything was sounding okay. There's a 20-second lag. Do you mean that you're like between where my lips are moving and what you're hearing? Or that it's just a little bit of delay? Because I tested my internet speed. I tested this. It says stream status is excellent on YouTube. So looks good. Awesome. Well, we're ready, I think, depending on what time it is. I can't tell if it's that time yet to officially begin the Q&A. It is. It is now 9:15. I don't know why I scheduled it to start 15 after, but I did. Okay, so there's a 20-second lag between your response and me seeing it. That's okay. As long as the video and the audio is synced up, that's what I'm concerned about. That actually gives me a good amount of time. Delay. Okay, yes. So, well, we're all learning together, aren't we? Yeah, and actually the 20-second lag may be built in. So because if you get a lot of comments, what happens is like they just scroll past and you have to go, what was that? What was that one? So, but yeah, welcome to the live stream. This is my first scheduled stream. And I hope to do more of these in the future and hope to be a bit better at them and have some of the kinks worked out of them. But this is my first attempt. So, Marilla, Gianni C. Mason, everything looks good in Toronto. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us from Toronto. We've gone international already. Awesome. So, one of the wonderful things about working remotely, which even before the pandemic hit, most of my clients were remote. So, I was doing 90 to 95% of all my sessions, all the work that I do, either over the phone via a conference call or doing like this, like a session, a remote session. So I'm really used to that. And I've gotten used to if you could see and I don't know how to share screen without making this weird. Let's lock those down. Without this getting very complicating and doing transitions and editing work, which I have not learned yet. But I've got on my dashboard on one of my screens on my computer, I've got all these clocks with different city names on them, and they're all in different time zones, so that I can at a glance go, okay, it's this time where they are, and then I can look at my clock and get an idea. So that's a handy little feature, and I use it quite a bit. So this is a Q&A. So really what this is going to be, it's going to all depend on you guys and what you ask. I'll do my best to answer your questions. If I start to ramble, type in the comments, you're rambling, Thomas. Heart plus, awesome. Awesome. So Sherry's a friend of mine. She's on the chat over here, and she lives in Baltimore. And she does healing work too. And I've been trying to encourage her to, get more of a YouTube presence. So I'm glad she's joining us. So, and if I can figure this out, someday maybe we'll have like side by side where we're like chatting back and forth at like an interview or we're doing group work together. Okay, so there's a question in the chat. It says, are there serpent beings who test your merit by heckling you with criticism or to ultimate being like weight training? I hear voices and stuff and feel that they're serpent related. There are many beings that will test you. Some walking on two legs, some not. There's a lot of people who go into like the reptilians and, that go into, ancient alien sort of stuff. And they talk about the serpent people. And I don't necessarily buy into that in the way that it's presented. And what I mean by that is that, we all have the ancient brain, the reptilian brain inside of us. And so when people say serpent people or the reptilians, sometimes I feel like it's just people that are operating from that level of awareness rather than actual reptiles that are walking around with like human skin pasted onto them. But yes, so what happens a lot of times is that we have our own insecurities and we'll sometimes pick up hitchhikers that will then echo those back to us and like keep us thinking that we're weak or we're not good enough. And in that sense, they can sort of draw off some of the emotional energy, that heavy energy from us and sort of use that to feed. That's my opinion on this as far as like entities go. But there has to be something in there for them to work with in the first place. Does that answer your question? You have no fear? Okay, you were just wondering. So in the chat, they were saying they don't have a normal fear of reptiles. That's good. I am not a fan of snakes. And lately I've been having experiences both in shamanic journey work and in actual dreaming where I've been encountering big snakes, big serpents lately. So it's interesting that the first question of the night was about reptiles or serpent folk. continuing the trend. So awesome. Did that answer your question? Do you want me to elaborate more or go into different detail with that? You've got me here for like an hour at least. Me either. Okay, so I see Krista is online. She has joined us. So somewhere in this chat, I know I've got relatives on this chat that are watching. I'll try not to talk about them. So let's see. Who else has got a question for me? You've got me for the hour. Well, I think about an hour. I mean, we could go over if there's like good questions because I can talk. Like you give me just like the slightest bit of prompting and I will just go for it. Hello, Krista. I can see you. And we've got, what's weird about this software, I know I do, is that I have to keep switching from one screen to the next. I have to keep switching from my streaming software to YouTube to see how many viewers I have because it doesn't show me on my software. But like the chat is so tiny if I switch over to the YouTube screen. All right, that was weird. It's cutting off the end of the chat. Oh, I know what happened. It's cutting off part of it. Yeah, ultimate being. You're wondering if you can evolve to see a greater perspective of life. Always yes. One of the things I talk about, though, and I've probably, if you've read my blog, I'll try not to, swear while I'm on the live stream, because I don't know how to edit that out yet. But I do swear a lot in my blog. I'm pretty open about, the language that I use there. And my problem with the idea of mastery, this idea that we can just evolve past our problems rather than, move through our problems and grow through our problems. And so I think, we're always going to have that voice of doubt in our heads. I still do. I haven't seen it go anywhere. Now, I have gotten better at telling it to sit down and be quiet while I'm working. Most times. Sometimes it still gets to me. But we're always going to have, things that are with us. And I don't mean like exterior things. I mean our own personal stuff. And rather than reaching towards perfection or this sort of ascension idea that is very popular, and I know why it's very popular because it's like, cool, I'm just so chill, nothing sticks to me, right? Is the idea of growing rather than trying to be perfect. And so if you're growing, I figure you're doing well. Okay, now I've got a question. Is it possible for us to interact with the energy of ourselves when you're doing or watching a video? If so, how can we do that? You mean like my normal shifting videos? Yes, there is a way for you to interact with that energy and take it. I mean, most people, they just have to, sit back, listen, or watch and allow. But if you're feeling drawn to like, I want to interact with this and do my own thing with it, sure, take that and run with it. To do that, you'd need to be in your heart and you'd need to be able to sort of track energy. That's all you'd need. And that sounds like you don't have to be super psychic to track energy. It's just like, where does your attention go when something's happening? And then just follow that and see where it leads you. How's that sound? Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, good. Good questions, guys. I like this. When I do, public talks and I go around affairs, I get like a bare bones outline and I just depend on people asking questions. So I'm really good with questions and answers, not so much as preparing a speech. Can you explain how you put your root chakra in alignment? Well, what? That's a big question. Let me think about that for a second. Okay, so we got 3 questions going on simultaneously. We'll see how I'm going to handle that. So, root chakra alignment, basically honoring the body, being in the body, um, taking care of your physical needs, making sure you're getting enough sleep, enough of the right kind of food and nutrients, um, trying to re-anchor and recenter, because a lot of us will just sort of shoot out of our body whenever we're stressed, and so getting back to that, touching the earth is a really good way to do that. It's a process. There's a lot to that. In fact, I just spent a whole year working on my root chakra in 2019. So depending on how you do it, it can take a long time. And in my experience, slower is better and less jarring. So let me go down to the next question. I'm only getting part of these. I'm going to have to, let's see, chat room, unlock that. Aha, here we go. I wasn't getting the whole screen there on there. Awesome. Okay. Okay, so someone asked about shifting into reality where magic happens automatically. Sorta, kinda. There is a way to do that. But it is basically, it's constant work actually to reframe, recenter, and disconnect in a sense from consensual reality. Now, you have to be very careful about doing that, because if you disconnect completely, you just disassociate and you no longer are able to interact really in a coherent way with other people, and people with white coats will come and put you in a place where you can interact in your own reality for however as long as you need to. So, there's a focus a lot on phenomena. And I've talked about this before, that I can deliver weird, but I can't necessarily deliver phenomena on demand. So sometimes really cool, magical, blow your socks off kind of healing stuff happens. A lot of times it's more subtle, and it just depends on what the moment dictates, what's needed in that moment. If you get too attached to having phenomena, you can actually get in the way of getting to where you want to go or where you need to go. So yes, the way to open to more possibilities, I think that's kind of what you're going towards. You want more like magical, things happening, more synchronicities, more, good luck happening, more flow. There are ways to do that. You end up having to adjust, continually make sure you've got good energy boundaries in your field, your aura, all your chakras, and your, just your internal state. You have to be really good at policing your inner state of being and your emotions. And then you have to sort of adjust little by little belief systems, and then we get into core beliefs, and that's where you really have to be careful and be very, very gentle with yourself, because that's very destabilizing. If you can think of that, your identity is built around a series of beliefs, and as you move one of those core beliefs, everything else sort of shakes. Think of the Jenga tower, and when it gets late in the game, I have to really be careful about how you take that block out and how you place it in in a different position. So that's the way to think about that. So it's a long process. It's a lot of work. And then once you get to that spot, you have a bit more leverage. But that is still work to maintain that sort of state. It's like brushing your teeth. It's like exercising and, doing anything else. You just kind of have to keep at it. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, someone asked me, what elements do I consider vital for my mesa? Although I just learned from when the Quiero down in Peru that we've been mispronouncing, it's mesa. But I still say mesa because I always think of setting the table for spirit. But it's actually, they say it's misa. So I should probably explain to other people watching what the misa or mesa is. It's basically a cloth wrapped bundle of stones that's used as sort of a sacred altar and used for healing work. And that's my mesa opened on my bed over there. Um, and I just sent out prayers for the week. As far as selecting what's in it, I'm, you know, different stones came to me via my teacher, via me being out in the world and seeing one and just sort of jumping out at me and going, take me, take me. Um, and other little elements I see, they're like, yes, that's sacred. I should put that in there. But if you're asking about like how I know how to place things on the cloth, that's a different thing. So are you taught? So let me clarify your question. Do you want to know like how I know what to put in my mesa or how to lay it out? Because those are two. Well, they're related, but yeah, Krista just said it's a personal choice for mesa, and that's very true. In fact, when I go to gatherings with my teacher and her other students, you can see a huge variety, particularly when we open our mesas, like the kind of stones that are in there. Um, some people are almost all like gemstones and stuff like that. I've got one or two that are kind of gemmy, that are kind of nice and shiny. That's because I worked for a stone vendor for a long time. You want to know about the stones. Okay, so when you start to study, the way that we did it is that we went around the medicine wheel and the four directions. So we had a south stone, we had a west stone, a north stone, and an east stone, and each one of those are linked to different energies. And so we just saw what came to us. And then we also got a lineage stone from our teacher. Sometimes people just give me stones and they end up in there. And I've also had a lot of stones that have been in my mesa that are no longer in my mesa, that I've either given to other people or I have them in my altar over here waiting for the home that they're supposed to go to. So it changes over time. Do I use traditional crystal guides? I do. I have a copy of the Book of Stones, which I really like as a nice reference. I used to do a lot of crystal alchemy grids before I started doing the more quantum shifting work and mesa work to sort of draw people into that deep state of the void. Some people call it the 0 point field or the Akashic field. And I used to, read and try to alchemize and put all these different stones together in particular patterns around, and I have them laying on the table, and I'd have them under. It would take me like a half hour to set up. I have these really complicated grids. I don't do that as much anymore, just because I found more efficient ways to do that. And, as such, I've gifted on a lot of my stones to other people because I had just so many. So I hope that answers your question. I know it really depends. And I worked for a crystal and stone vendor, so I got so many stones. In fact, I'm like looking in front of me. I've got like stones here, stones there, stones over here, over there, on that, over there. I mean, all just everywhere. I mean, and I've got more at my office. So if I didn't have the office, I'd have to get rid of even more stones. So, but I mean, I think they're a nice starting point for sure to have those as a guide. You have to start somewhere, and I feel like books are cool, but also most of the stones at like my mesa, they're not crystals. Most of them are not anything special to look at. They're what I call working stones. So they've got particular jobs. And some of them are more just holding space in the mesa, and some of them are for particular purposes. Like my Tektite stones, I'll click those together to kind of get a feel of the energy and to see if things are in balance. They can also help eat heavy energy. I've got a black stone, and that one's what I call my depossession stone. And so I use that to extract entities. I love that stone because it's made my life and my work so much easier. So, um, but other stones are, they're different. It just depends on what they are, and sometimes they're more malleable as what their purpose is. You ask, is there a means of shape-shifting in a mirror and see with all senses open? I want to self-express. Sort of, yes. There is a particular type of magic called glamour, which was used by fairy and nature spirits. And this is Beltane, everybody, so this is like a perfect, time to experience that, provided you have a good relationship with nature spirits. But yeah, it's about energy sculpting, but really, over time, what happens is the energy that you hold will start to shape how you appear to others. But you can also invoke certain energies to, bring forward certain traits. So I hope that answers your question. I think it does. I mean, if you want to self-express, it's really about calling in a particular type of energy and, being in alignment with that energy and allowing it to radiate outward through your physical form. Someone said a few weeks ago you made a comment the earth is sleeping and you could hear her dreaming. Do you feel that way? There are times that, yes, it feels like the earth is dreaming very loudly right now. And that we have, like, currently we've got going on, we've got, the human experience and the nature experience, but they're, both coinciding. And so as this pandemic took off, at least here, it was like spring was just going, all the animals and all the flowers just blooming, and just there was like this explosion of life at the same time that we're experiencing this very, feeling of impending death. Or so those two side by side, it can be really jarring to have those two dichotomies existing. Sherry asked a very good question. Do you think there's a price for using magic? Always. It doesn't have to be ominous, though. I mean, a lot of the price is putting in the work, putting in the time and the practice to keep your energy nice and clear and clean so that you can get the effect that you want. If you're, whatever you're doing, you're having to run through, at least the way I do it, everything I do has to run through me. So if I'm doing something that's not so great or not in alignment with really good energy, that's going to affect my physical form and how I feel. So that's, yes, in that sense, yes, there is. But there's a price to everything that we do. It can be, a lot of times the price is time and attention. If you're getting into like bargains with particular spirits, it's a little bit different. Like they may ask for favors. You may like, bake me something and leave it out on this particular night, and you do that. So what was the price? The price for the flour, the sugar, the eggs, whatever, and the time and effort it took to put that together, put it out there for them, and the time to establish that relationship. We could say, do relationships come with a price? Yes, they do. But most of the times, they're prices that we're really fine paying. So, good question. And do you have an example you could share of a quantum jump you have made or just a reality shifting experience you enjoyed that could help others expand? I have lots of little stories. I remember when I first was learning to do this, I was driving, I was in Baltimore, I was leaving Baltimore to go to Virginia to visit a friend. And we were stopping at either a gas station or a rest stop, and the car just like died. And I was still pretty high off of this class workshop that I'd taken, and I just went in and I went, whoop, whoop, and then all of a sudden, because it was one of those where like the battery is dead. There was no like, even when you turn that and then all it was like, oh no 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 no, and then it was back on. Now, do I do that all the time? No, I was pretty charged up and in an altered state from that class. And to maintain that level of awareness is a lot of work. And I'm trying to get back into that now since I have so much extra time to practice with the shutdown that's going on. So another example was on that same trip. No, a different trip actually. Um, I was driving and I was seeing like 3 different weather patterns at the same time. So I had the weather that was going on, where I was, which was sort of just overcast and cold. And then I saw this sort of transparent snow pattern, but it was not snowing. And then I also was seeing like sunbeams that were also transparent. Well, they're always transparent, but that they weren't there. And so what it was is, and I had somebody else in the car who had just gone through the same experiences that I had. And what had happened was we'd been thinking about parallel universes, and we started to see the weather patterns in like the closest ones, like overlaid on our visual field. And I was like, yeah, that one's how many to the left was that one? And we come up with the same number, like how far away it was, and so that was pretty cool. I in the last bit have gotten away from, I think I said this earlier, too much phenomena, and I've gone more subtle to where it's more like what's going on inside. But occasionally I do still get phenomena, and I love it when I do because it's like, yay, I'm not just making that up. But as you go and you progress, in yoga and different yoga traditions, they had something called the siddhis, the powers. And the people that were seeking enlightenment would tell you, like, those are kind of a distraction. Like, you can get lost in that. So one of the elements of that's really important is just if somebody has an ability, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good person. And I had to learn that the hard way. So I hope that answers that. Let's see. Jupiter and Venus will be in alignment with the crescent moon, forming a smiling face on the night going into my birthday. What do you think this means for me? I would say I'm not an astrologer, so I don't know. But what do you want it to mean? Take it as, as you can. You can, there are ways, even if you have, misfortunate astrological alignment, to harmonize those. They do a lot of that with some advanced qigong, where they like breathe in certain energies of different planets, and they harmonize with it in their bodies. So I would say decide what you want that to be for you, and make that happen. I actually today watched a YouTube video on like the sounds of the planets that NASA recorded the electromagnetic waves coming off of the different ones, and they turned them into basically sound files, and like the different sounds. Venus had this really deep rumbly sound, but Jupiter, I really loved the sound of Jupiter. It was very, I felt really expansive when I listened to it. And that is usually what Jupiter is associated with, is expansion, success, growth. Venus is usually associated with, love, relationships, beauty, things like that. So if you want to, and then the moon is our emotions. So if you want to bring those two in together, the alignment there, it's forming a smiley face. So I think that's good. But I don't have the angles of alignment there like a real astrologer would. So I don't know the answer to that one. Sorry. But you could just decide that it's going to be good for you. So good questions, guys. Well, I'm liking this. This is fun. We should do this more often. So, let's see. What else we have as far as questions? Have I missed any? Oh, let's see. This is a much easier way. Okay, yeah. So, for those of you that don't know this, I have done some work with my Patreon sponsors. Um, Once a month, I'll do a teleconference with them. And this last month, the month of April, when we did our teleconference, it was all about around the energy of uncertainty. And as we were trying to shift forward and move and find the new path, what I was told while I was doing this was wait. And I'm still kind of in that mode. So you're wanting to know how to make waiting meaningful. Well, I can tell you what I've been doing. And now I'm not always productive. Like, the situation in the world affects me emotionally and mentally just as much as it does anybody else. So some days I'm just not equipped to deal. Some days my phone stays off, and because I just don't have it to talk to anybody. Um, I've had a couple days like that in the past 2 weeks, and I just don't get anything done. Or I do one thing and then I'm just zonked out, exhausted. But when I'm not having that, I've been doing a lot more meditation, and I've been doing a lot of practicing Tai Chi and Qigong outside. Whenever I can, I practice outside today for about a little over an hour, and the sky was like crystal blue, just vibrant. I don't remember it being this clear and just vibrant in quite some time. So, mostly I've been working on self care. I have been working on my book as well, which requires a lot of shamanic journeying. So I'm doing a lot of inner work. And sometimes that inner work is just lying in bed and not getting much done. I mean, I get out of bed, obviously, but I don't get a whole lot done a lot. I have the time. I have the time now to do so much, but I'm finding that a lot of days I don't have the energy to do a whole lot. Yes, it was a very pretty day out today. I got outside. I made sure of it. But I think, waiting and holding space, if you can think of waiting as, what am I holding space for? Because a lot of like what I do to allow things to happen, to allow things to move and change. So if you can approach the waiting as I am holding space, and then decide, what am I holding space for? You've been playing with your violin outside? Ooh, I like violin music. Are you any good? Like, well, I'll put it this way. Do your neighbors love you or not? I'm being a little bit facetious right now. I'm sorry. But that's great though. That no music is, I think you've got it. You're making music. Yeah, exactly. That Krista said it. That's a fantastic thing to do. I know a lot of people are getting on and they're playing, they're live streaming, they're with their ukulele and everything. Um, some I would love to drum, but it would drive the dog crazy. And I have a didgeridoo over there too that I need to really get. I've never learned to circular breathe, and now would be a great time to practice that if it didn't drive everybody in the house and the dog crazy. Um, but yeah, I think it's time to like go within. That would be my answer to that. Like, how can you wait in a sacred way? Um, is it possible to achieve binding immortality in the afterlife realm? Life can be. Let's see. I'm not getting that full answer here. Oop, there we go. It's easier to read on the screen. Life can be tiring, but I enjoy being alive, and the idea of pure love energy seems unappealing to the part of me that loves physical interaction. When you say binding immortality in the afterlife realm, I'm having a problem understanding that question, because different people will manifest in physical for a certain amount of time until they feel like that's it. They've done their thing. They're done. Learning. Any person that usually tells me they're in their last lifetime, I'm like, great, I'm going to see them again next lifetime. Because it just seems like if you think you're on your last lifetime, you usually have a bunch more to go. So I probably have a bunch more to go. But I want to take a vacation in between this life and the next one, because this one, there's been a lot of challenges in this one too. Right? Life is tiring. And I was thinking about that today because I know somebody who is almost 90 and they are like a ball of fire. And always, I've known them for since 2000, 2001, 20 years. Oh my God. And so when they were in like their, early 70s, and they've been a force of nature the entire time and they have not slowed down. And they're just passionate about everything. And I think that's the key is to, we have to meet our responsibilities um, to life and to the people around us, but we also have to meet uh, passion. And it seems like we live in a world that is designed to dampen passion as much as possible and tap it down and keep it, it's like, because that's disruptive. It's also not normal, and we're really invested in normal. And I was actually thinking about this today while I was mowing the lawn, because sometimes I have deep thoughts when I'm doing menial labor. But this idea of, growing up, and that is like all about being serious, and it's like, no, it's about becoming more capable and seeing to our responsibilities. But if we lose all our joy and passion in the process, we really haven't grown up. We've just been broken in a productive way for society. So we've been trained. We haven't grown up, we've been trained. So, looking at those two, you know, doing what you love. I like what I do, but it's work. People on the outside don't see that, but it is. I have to do a lot, and I have to do a lot of internal work, and I have to struggle with a lot of things in order to do the work that I do. And it doesn't always feel good. So I don't know if that really answers your question, because I don't really have the answer to about how you would achieve that in the afterlife, because obviously I haven't done that. A light body. Okay. So someone has placed Star of Life has said, do you mean something along the lines of the Brotherhood of Light carrying their body into the non-physical? Finding fulfillment. Oh, okay. So I misread that because there was a typo. That's why. Okay. It said binding fulfillment. Finding fulfillment in the afterlife. That's a completely different question. Okay. So peace in a permanent, sort of as a permanent thing. Probably, I mean, that's kind of what like nirvana, the idea of nirvana enlightenment is for many traditions, that we reach a state of that pure awareness and bliss. I am currently not there, in case you couldn't tell. So I'm not. I will say this: I have seen a future version of myself who has reached a different level of being, and I was kind of surprised. And I'm wondering, because they said I would have a long and happy life, and I'm like, I'm still waiting on that. Particularly right now. Yeah. Oh, and someone said, I miss being stupid silly with you. I miss that too. I have not laughed anywhere near what my quota demands for laughter lately, and I'm not alone in that. So, but yeah, finding fulfillment. I mean, finding endless fulfillment or that eternal bliss. I know we have someone on the chat, or we did, who is My friend Sherry practices and teaches Tantra, which is all about, unifying with that ultimate state of bliss and making everything sacred. Uh, and so maybe a particular spiritual path might be, one that you would follow to achieve that. Um, like I said, that's beyond my ken, beyond my awareness and knowing. Um, I had for a while, for years, decided that I was going to become a master or something in this. And then I gave that up and just said, you know what? I want to be competent and good at what I do and be helpful and useful to others and also be able to live and enjoy my life. Um, the problem I had with my relationship with the idea of mastery or this perfection was that I was withholding enjoyment and withholding love from myself because I wasn't there yet. So I'll love myself when I become a master, when I'm perfect. Like that's ever going to happen. So, tickle butterfly. You tend to remember your dreams and you find them to be symbolic. You wonder if are they messages meant only for me or only for you, rather, not for me. Sometimes I also have interesting symbolic dreams, and sometimes they mean more or more, encompassing, and sometimes not. Um, I think you'd have to go into each individual one and sort of feel what your reaction was to it. That's what I would say. So it's not one that some of them will be just for you. In fact, probably a lot of them will be just for you. But it's not uncommon to have dreams that will also incorporate messages for the people around you that are that you're very close to. So, and we also, when we're asleep and we're dreaming, we're also, we've got our subconscious, but we're also plugged into the collective unconscious. So when you're picking up larger events, sometimes that happens. So there's no easy way for me to answer that question, but I would say first see, what does this mean to me, and then feel into that question, and then after you've picked the meaning for you or gone through that for you, also see what you're feeling about what it can mean for those around you. Because we don't exist in a vacuum. Our relations are connected. So, good question though. Dream work can be very powerful. Let's see, Giga. The jewelry box you mentioned in the session needed to clear. It was a candy tin I got in the future when I wiped away the paint with Florida water, my life shifted for the better. I don't remember that because I don't remember the session. It's weird. I rarely will remember, unless it was just very, very recent, what happens in a session. So I'll be like, we did something, right? The details will fade, except for a couple of them. So, well, cool that you figured that out, though. I've got some Florida water right here. Look. You can see that. I put it in a spritzer, and in Peru they put a little bit in that, and they go, and they spit it out through their teeth. I've never been able to do that, and right now, of course, that's a very bad thing to do. So I have it in a spritzer, and I just go. Speak. Florida water, good stuff. Some people love sage. I've never been a fan of sage. It smells. Never liked the smell of it. It's too smoky for me. But I do like Palo Santo. I use that. That's what they use down in Peru, and they also use a lot of Florida water. So that's usually what I use. Wow, there is a lag. When I switch screens here to YouTube, yeah, it's not a good idea right now to be going, and spewing stuff everywhere. So, awesome sauce. Oh my gosh, we've been on for an hour. I can't believe it. Does anybody have any other burning questions they want to ask before? I mean, I can stay on. Well, no, we've not been on for an hour. I've been on for an hour because I was testing the stream out. We've been on for 45 minutes. So, but there's been some great questions tonight, guys. And I actually prefer clicking on over to the live chat here on the stream on the YouTube page because I can actually read it better. My software's got it like really tiny. You can't really see the whole message. I don't know why it does it that way. I can't like compress it to where it like does it. It just resizes the window in a weird way. Like I said, still learning. So Tickle Butterfly. I like that name, by the way. That's a good handle. Thanks, Sherry. She just said good work. Oh, that's awesome. So, Giga, you doused a paper towel in it and stripped all the paint off the tin and listening to the destruction of Laputa. And I got some amazing news dear to my heart the day after. What is the destruction of Laputa? Is that an album? Like, I'm interested to see what kind of, exactly what kind of music that is. Zara Simsha, thank you so much. Thanks for coming to this. I really enjoy doing this in the interaction. It's like a Zoom call, but you're typing instead of, having your little things. At some point, I would like to be able to do like a video conference thing that I can record on here and post it. La Piota is a floating city. Ooh, like Midgar in Final Fantasy VII. Floating city of Midgar. Some of you will get that reference and some of you won't. That's okay. And I've not played the remake because I do not have a PS4. Because I spend my money on art supplies and classes. And books. Lots and lots and lots of books. Oh. Can you guys hear the train in the background? It's awesome. I don't know why, but I find the sound of the train and in the distance, the train whistle, I find that comforting. It always just makes me feel like... Now, if I were living right next to the train tracks, I might not think that, but I do. I've always kind of liked the sound of the train. Star of Life said, I very much appreciate you and your videos. They're part of what helped me through a major dark night of the soul and metamorphosis. Oh, that's great. Dark nights of the soul can really suck. But we usually come out of them so much better. So I'm hoping that's what's going on right now. Like, before all this happened, Coyote took an interest in me again. The last time Coyote took an interest in me, I was fired from both of my jobs within a week. You can hear the train. Well, that's all right. I can hear it. Look up Laputa Castle in the Sky. That sounds like a Miyazaki film almost. We'll see. Well, thank you so much for that comment, Star of Life. I'm glad that the videos are helpful. And if you're thinking of like particular topics I'm always asking for topics for videos. So what I started doing is like going through the comment sections on my videos because people ask me, and sometimes I will do videos based on comments. And I usually do that with my Patreon people too. They get like first pick. But a lot of times people will say, can you make a video to do this? And it's like something really specific or extraordinarily complicated. And what ends up happening is like, yeah, that's kind of too complicated for a video. We might have, that's more like a session, or, you know, that's more of like a teleconference kind of thing. So I try to accommodate some things, because, you know, unlike this, the Q&A video is a long video right now, but for most of those shifting videos, I'm trying to keep them, for a while they keep getting longer and longer and longer. And that's not, I mean, YouTube likes that if people watch through the end, but people want their little fix and then they want to go. So I'm trying to keep them like in the 5 to 7 minute range. That's kind of what I'm doing with those. Yeah, Krista just said, didn't Coyote say this was not him? Okay, so for those of you that don't know, I did journey to Coyote recently about everything that's going on. I was like, did you do this? And he was like, oh, no. This is like way bigger than whatever I could do. And I was like, okay. He's like, I'm going to make use of it though. So, because he's Coyote. Coyote will take advantage of any situation. Giga said, you really helped me with your work. Seems like I seek you out when I'm feeling really serious about my awareness and healing journey. That's really interesting because it seems like I have like a certain number of clients that like I don't see them for like a long time. Like I'll do work with them and then I'll be like, you know, I guess they didn't really like that. And then like 2 years later, they'll call me. Oh, man, I need to get a session with you. And so what I've kind of come to the awareness is that, you know, for a lot of things that I do, it takes a while to integrate in someone's life, for one, and B, you know, I feel like I've done my work well if like I do a session or two for you and then I don't hear from you for a while. It means like what I did was useful and worked, so you don't have to keep coming back for more. So I'm just trying to build that number up so that I'm always get this going in the roster, which is, you know, also why some of you guys that are those clients are also on my Patreon, which is really nice that I get that sort of, you know, more constant contact with you. So, you know, it's not like, well, I might not have to wait years to hear from you, because you're involved in that sacred circle. An immune system video would be appropriate for the times. That's not a bad idea, actually. I've been trying to, you know, approach that very carefully, just because I want to be mindful of like people's experiences and the way some people will latch on to something like that and maybe think, oh, I've got this protection on me now, so I don't have to be as careful. That's what I've been trying to avoid. Stop calling you out publicly like that. I wasn't just talking about you. But yeah, for May might be a good month for immune system. So yeah, I'll give it a whirl. I won't plan it ahead of time, because I find if I try to do that, it just doesn't work. So I just sit, you know, I just make sure I've taken care of my energy for that day. I've done what I need to do, and I have the space around me, and then I just sink in and we'll do it. And yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of stuff that I've done, journey work about what's going on and looking into that, talking with my particular guides. But I haven't really shared a whole bunch of that because there's been so many people sharing so many theories and so many spiritual messages that I feel like, you know, it can get sort of noisy. And a lot of times, like, some of those messages are really personal. And, you know, again, also you have to, even if you get like a higher perspective of what, you know, this is taking us and where this will help us grow. We're in the midst of what is a very traumatic experience for many of us, and I don't want to downplay the seriousness of that by focusing on this, you know, top level spiritual stuff. Like, Yes, it's important to keep that connection and to keep that awareness, but also to be aware of where I am and where other people are emotionally, physically, and mentally. Yeah, okay, so the suggestion was like approach the fear of it, not necessarily invincibility. Yeah, and of course, my take on fear is a little bit different from a lot of different teachers. There's a lot of people that demonize fear. And there was years ago, I saw this is going to seem silly. There was an author on the Oprah show when she still had like the show in the middle of the day on TV, on broadcast. Um, and there was an author, Gavin DeBecker, who wrote this book called The Gift of Fear. Um, and I actually got that book and I read it. And it was really good. And just how, this instantaneous response, how people will pick up on subtle cues in their environment and react. And in all of these different stories, how fear saves somebody's life. And so, one of the things they said, fear is a response in the presence of danger. And I thought, wow, that really, which is different from being locked into panic mode, locked into worry, going into thought spirals. That's a bit different. But I really think that having a healthy level of fear and having a good relationship with that fear is where it's, key. So having how we relate to fear, how we deal with it, and how we move through it is I think better than trying to get rid of fear because it's going to be with us as long as we have a body. So, okay, you asked, you sometimes think your future where you're sort of a dragon being in another reality, reaching back in time to into this way as you're reaching forward to them. Well, yeah, the universe and the multiverse is a big place, and time has no meaning to the soul. So, we think about, past lives or next lifetime, but really it's not the next or the past. It's all at the same time. So, in some ways, that might be comforting for those people who feel like, oh, I don't want to come back again. Well, technically, you sort of already have. You're already doing it. You're doing it concurrently. And I look at this, I talk about this in my I'm putting together a workshop called The Quantum Self. I was supposed to teach it in Manhattan at the end of May. That's obviously not going to happen right now. At some point, I will teach this workshop, but I talk about time and the soul and different universes and how the soul is like the collective of all of our lives. And I think of the spirit as the animating force from the soul that comes in to animate each body in each lifetime. So we have a different spirit, in a sense, for each body that we inhabit. But we have one soul, and that all of the different lifetimes are connected through that soul. Okay, Star of Life says, fear grows us, but there is an excessive amount in the global consciousness that is tearing humanity apart. It can be healthy, but it can also be toxic. Yeah. Well, I mean, water can be toxic if you have too much of it. But I agree. Yeah, there is. What I've said about fear is that we try to disassociate from it so much that it's almost like we push it out here and then someone else can come in and use that fear to control us. So if we've got a good relationship with our fear, if we own it, if we, don't try to stuff it down, get rid of it, shop it away, buy it, let someone else soothe our fears all the time. It's fine to be soothed, it's fine to be comforted. But if we externalize that and externalize our fears that way, that's where it becomes a really powerful control mechanism for other forces to come in, whether it be human or otherwise, to, you know, kind of confine us. Will this be saved on YouTube? If I do the software stuff right, it will be. I hope so. It's, if not, that's fine. You were here for it. You got information out of it. But I had planned to save it for posterity. Not that I'm all that eloquent, but you know, I took the time, so I want it to be out there. You never know. And yeah, here's the thing, you never know what you do or say and how it's going to affect somebody else. And that's both good and bad. Um, and you can do your best to always trying to be putting good stuff out there, and still someone can take it in a way that is harmful to them. People can, you need to be, I try to be mindful of like how my words and such will affect people, but at the same time, at the end of the day, I can only put out what my intention is. And then how other people, I can't control how other people are going to take it. And it's not my responsibility how other people can take it, as long as I've put into the intent and I care with what I put out. And so, that's something that took me a long time, and I'm still learning that. That some people are going to misconstrue what I do or say. And then just because some people say something about you does not automatically make it true. Like, that's a big one. It's so interesting to me that when somebody says something about it that's very pejorative and it's a judgment, and we automatically jump to, oh my God, is that true? Instead of thinking, is that accurate? I don't know that that's, different. Like, I'm one of those people, if you say that I've done sort of selfish or this or that, like, I'll automatically think that I am, instead of questioning the legitimacy of, like, where are you coming from with that? Why are you saying that? So, oh, Sherry, I'm sorry to see you go, but so thank you for joining me. Do you think, so Giga asked, do you think we have choice in what we experience after death? I would hope so. I plan, like I said, to take a vacation after this lifetime. I would like to vacation in Tir na Nog. It seems like a fun place. So, maybe take a couple centuries in there. Because, time has no meaning, right? I can come back whenever. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, choice, right? When you're not tied to a body, you can be wherever you want to be. So I would say, be wherever you want to be. All right, guys, unless you have any last minute questions, I am going to go ahead and end the stream. So thank you all so much for coming. This was great, and I hope to connect with you guys soon. All right, peace and blessings.